When God is preparing to establish a people, he will position them for practical reasons by a river. And what we should know, and I'm going to illustrate to you about the southeastern part of the United States, is that there are many rivers there. And it's interesting that that is the base from which we started. And I'm going to tell you up front that the thrust and the focus of this lecture is that that is the place that we have to return. And I'm going to also tell you this, that Black people have already begun to return to the South. And that started in earnest probably in 2000 when the quote unquote Great Migration came to an end. And Black people begin to realize in Detroit, in Chicago, in Cleveland, in Akron, in Philadelphia, in New York City, in California, in Los Angeles, Oakland, San Francisco, Black people begin to realize that those cities were not the paradises, were not the promised lands that they anticipated. That when they got there, when we got to those cities fleeing oppression, that we encountered a different kind of oppression. We encountered being locked out of unions, which would ensure that we would have a right to work and to earn a living wage. We encountered being locked out of neighborhoods that we could afford to pay for in terms of the rent, in terms of our credit rating, such as it was, not because we didn't have the ability to pay the rent, but because people simply didn't want to live around Black people. So we ran into what were called restrictive covenants, where landlords were prohibited from leasing their property to certain people, Black people, Jewish people, Catholics, but substantially Black people. So we now are beginning this process of reevaluating what we should do. We're not looking for heaven on earth. And if we are looking for heaven on earth, let me tell you, it doesn't exist. Paradise has been lost since the time of Adam and Eve. So when we talk about migration in the sense that we're going to talk about it today, it's not so that we can achieve a utopia. Utopia doesn't exist. But it is so that we can position ourselves in such a way that we can have the maximum opportunity to be successful politically, economically, and spiritually, and otherwise, socially and culturally. I think that all people on planet Earth have the right to be able to position themselves so that they have the final say in terms of what happens to them politically, economically, socially, and culturally. I think that all people have the right to self-determination. I think that that's biblical. I think that to be created in the likeness, in the image of God, comes with that basic ingredient. And when any group of people are denied this right, then they're being denied the very right and the very basic requirements of humanity.